Hello everyone, I hope you're all keeping well, healthy and happy. In this video I'm going to focus on something a little bit more UK centric, and that is the sabotage which is taking place regarding the Brexit process. We all understand that it's a long and complex process for the UK to extricate itself from the European Union, but it seems to me at least that the European Union and the ECB are doing everything possible to prevent the UK from leaving the EU. But not only do we have to contend with that, okay, we also have to contend with the fact that the current British government, that is the Conservative Party which is in power over here, is also making noises which suggest that they want to maintain the status quo. Why is that? Well, I'm going to tell you the reason behind that and the person who is primarily responsible for it. And we'll get into that as this video goes on. But first and foremost, you have to understand the political landscape inside the UK. See, that's the thing. A lot of people don't get it. You have the Labour Party, the British Labour Party, which is the Marxist Socialist Party, right? It's basically communist in nature. In fact, the current leader of that party, Jeremy Corbyn, made the distinct point at the party conference this year, along with John McDonnell, who is the Shadow Chancellor, that they want to control the means of production. They want to have total state control over every single facet of the economy, right? So they have stated their positions and they have staked those positions blatantly and outright. They're not hiding anything. Okay, so that's the far left party as it stands at the moment, and Corbyn and company have basically taken it in that direction. Slightly to the right of them is the modern day Conservative Party. Under David Cameron, they started this process of trying to take over the centre-left ground from the Labour Party. Okay? And they shifted very, very strongly to the left. See, every political party out there today, for the most part, is on the left. I've tried to explain this to people and people don't get it. The school systems and college systems and everything else, the universities, have conditioned people. The education system as it stands, as I said, it's an indoctrination system really. It's conditioned people to believe that the Conservative Party, anything conservative, is actually on the right now. It is not. It has shifted to the left. Okay? The political ground has shifted, but the indoctrination camps don't want to tell people that because it suits them to keep this false paradigm going. And it is a false paradigm. The real centre ground is over here somewhere, by the way, right? So let's say that's the centre. That's the Conservative Party, and over here is the Labour Party. Okay? If you were going to talk about anything right-wing, really you'd have to talk about something over there. But they don't do that, you see. I'm just illustrating this point, right? They're hiding the truth from people, which is that everything's on the far left in terms of the political discourse. You see, the Overton window, insofar as political dialogue is concerned, has shifted so far to the left that nobody is allowed to talk about anything on the right at all. In fact, you can see this manifest even with UKIP. What happened with the latest leadership election, where the candidate who was speaking honestly and truthfully about Islamism and this danger that it poses, not only to the UK but the West as a whole, was absolutely sidelined and maligned by even the former leader of UKIP, who was Nigel Farage, right? And they elected some guy who's basically the equivalent of a social democrat. Now that's not to say he might not do some interesting and good things, but the way I'm seeing this, British politics is it's completely unwinnable now in terms of the centrist position It's all on the far left. So that's the way things are going there. But why has that happened? And why is the Brexit process being stymied? Well, this goes back to this notion of international communism. You see, the Conservative Party has had its policies shaped by the Fabian Society for some time now, at least since David Cameron came into power. Possibly prior to that as well, but indirectly what they've been doing is shifting the Conservative Party, and they've been manipulating the members of the Conservative Party with this line that they will be able to capture the centre-left ground, as I say, from the Labour Party. This is impossible because that ground has already been staked by Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. Right? You can't win that ground. It is impossible. The Conservative Party is supposed to be on the right. It is supposed to be a conservative, truly conservative party. It's not. Now, I'm not for either party, by the way. Right? That's important for me to stress. I am non-partisan with regards to this. What I am concerned about is the way in which these shifts have happened. Right? So, who has been responsible for this? Well, you have to understand that the business of government does not fall under the purview of politicians. Okay, politicians don't run government. This is something no one will tell you, right? Politicians don't run the government. Politicians are there to make the business of government look good. If they can. Most of the time they actually suck at it, so they end up making it look very, very bad. But they're there to be the front men, the puppets, right? Who does the business of running government? Well, that would be the civil service. Okay? The civil service runs the government. And most importantly, the person who the Prime Minister and the Cabinet look to for advice in shaping their policies is the Cabinet Secretary. Okay? Who is the current Cabinet Secretary, you might wonder? Well, it happens to be Sir Jeremy Haywood. The chances are you will not have heard this name. Okay? Some of you who are really clued in might have, but many of you won't have. Right, because everyone's directing the blame, as I say, at the PM. It's an easy target, right? So everyone just throws all their anger and their annoyance at Theresa May. The reality is that the Cabinet Secretary is the one who is making these decisions to push the party in certain directions. Okay? This is the power behind the throne, as it were, in a great many ways. There are people higher up than the current Cabinet Secretary, who is Sir Jeremy Haywood, as well, of course. And that would be the Lord Chancellor and so forth. I might go into that on another occasion. But the reality of it is that this guy is a very sneaky individual. He was actually a socialist, by the way, when he began his career. Okay, he's an admitted socialist. That should tell you something. Okay, of course, this will go over the heads of most people. You see, he has served 4 British Prime Ministers, the first being Tony Blair. Then he served Gordon Brown, and then David Cameron, and now Theresa May. Every one of their premierships has been a disaster. Every one of them has made colossal cock-ups. And they can all be traced back to this man. You see, since 2012, Haywood has been the head of the Cabinet Office in the post of Cabinet Secretary. And the position of the Cabinet Secretary is the most powerful position that you can have in the civil service. To quote Peter Hennessy, who's a historian, he is the person who is always in the room with the Prime Minister, the person who is always there on the conference call. Okay? This is who this guy is. He was previously the Economic and Domestic Policy Secretary to Tony Blair from 97 to 98. And then he was his principal private secretary from 99 to 2003. He was head of domestic policy for Prime Minister Gordon Brown from 2007 to 2008, and Downing Street permanent secretary, first for Brown, then for David Cameron, from 2008 to 2011. That is why the business of government has kept chugging along on the same lines. Okay, it keeps going. The agenda keeps going. That's the important part of this. All the major scandals that have happened in all of their premierships can actually be traced right back to this guy. And that is no joke. Okay? The cock-ups and foul-ups that happened with the Iraq war under Tony Blair's government, this guy had a lot to do with it. But he keeps getting away with it every time. In fact, some of the papers that first started to report on this guy, and then they were told to shut up, so they've never reported on him again. But some of the papers that first started reporting on him called him Sir Hiss, from the famous Disney cartoon Robin Hood, right? So he's always hissing in people's ears. He's the snake in the grass. Okay, this is who this guy is. And he has been very heavily influenced by socialist doctrine. And he's a major player when it comes to the policies and the ideas of the Fabian Society, as I say, being implemented in government. So don't take your eye off the ball with regards to this guy, because this is exactly the guy who is trying to prevent Brexit. Okay, and he's doing it on behalf of these people who believe in international communism. He's doing it on behalf of these people who want to see the European Union become totalitarian and authoritarian and clamp down on people in the ways that it has been. And he wants the UK to be a part of that. Okay, he wants the UK to actually be subject and continue to be subject to the laws of European style politics. Okay, nasty piece of work. But these are the folks in government, inside the civil service, that are pushing the agenda forward. And that is why we're seeing what we're seeing with Brexit. Okay, that's why it's being stymied. That's why the PM currently can't push for anything more, and is being directed to pursue certain lines and avenues. One other thing on a related note that I'd like to point out as well before I close this video off is that this is also the reason why the PM won't resign. Because what would happen is, if Theresa May resigned, he would have to go with her. Okay, he'd have to resign too. And the civil service doesn't want to see that, and the Fabian Society don't want to see that, right? That's the reason why the challenges to Theresa May's leadership are not being brought forward. The power brokers are trying to prevent that. But when it comes to the question of leadership of the Conservative Party as it stands at the moment, I have to say, and I've said this before, I do think that Theresa May remaining in power is actually going to gift a victory to Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. Okay, the socialists, the hardline socialists and communists are going to get into power as a result of May staying on, as a result of all this sabotage, which is exactly what Haywood wants, because he was previously a Labour guy. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. There are plays being made behind the scenes to make these things happen. This ineptitude that we've seen from Theresa May's government and leadership is not an accident. It is being done on purpose. Okay, they're pushing every moronic candidate forward that they can think of to any candidate in a potential leadership contest, I should stress, they're doing that so that the chances of the Labour Party being re-elected increase. And we saw that with the previous election as well. Okay? The power brokers want the Labour government in power. They want Corbyn in power because it makes it easier for them to carry out the things that they want to carry out. Okay? What they don't want is for a real traditionalist or a real conservative to be in any kind of position of leadership, because they'll bring in their own cabinet secretary who would quite probably align more with their own views. So someone like Jacob Rees-Mogg, for example, would bring in someone of his own flavour, if you will. And they don't want that. They can't afford that. Similarly with someone like David Davis, who I admire immensely, because I heard him on something of a separate note. I heard David Davis speak on the issue of privacy some years ago, and I was quite impressed with his leadership style. And he was correct on a number of the issues that he was talking about. He seems more akin to a libertarian than he does a full-on conservative or a traditionalist. So I quite like him with regards to a potential run at the leadership. But Jacob Rees-Mogg would also be a good selection because he is a traditionalist, he is a conservative, and he does want to see the sovereignty of the UK retained. He wants to see the UK leave the European Union. He wants to see people in the UK be able to stand by the old traditions which made Britain what it was once upon a time. Okay, now you can call them old-fashioned, you can call them strange, people do in the press, right? But this is a guy with some moral character. Okay, I don't agree with every one of his positions, by the way. That's something else I should say. I don't agree with every position he's got, but I do agree with the majority of them. Because he does speak sense. So I wouldn't be opposed to any form of mogmentum, as they're calling it, should there be a leadership contest. But I have my own favourite guy as well, which is David Davis, who I think would be a stable candidate behind whom the entire Conservative Party would get. He's also been steadfast in being anti-European Union as well throughout the majority of his career. He doesn't like the idea of a totalitarian system being imposed on people. And he also would probably bring in his own brand of cabinet secretary as well. But obviously Mrs. May and Mr. Haywood specifically are trying to do everything in their power to avoid that happening. And they are trying to derail Brexit. Okay, so we'll see what happens. But it's important to be aware of these facts. If you are a British citizen, if you are living in Britain, it's important to know these things if you were pro-Brexit especially, so that you understand how things lie and which direction they're more than likely to go in future. Anyway, I've rambled long enough here, but I just thought I'd give you my thoughts on that. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. You guys have been immensely supportive over the last little while. And I'm always bowled over by that. I'm touched by the amount of support and the love that you guys have shown. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Take good care of yourselves, and God bless you all.